All right, welcome to SVU Pod Especially Heinous. I am Gabe.
I'm Tasha.
We are on Season 4, Episode 19, Appearances. Opening scene. A bunch of grade school kids are getting on a public bus with their teacher. They're going on a field trip to some museum. Mm-hmm. One chubby little cute kid is like, hey, I found a suitcase. And he's like tugging on it.
Yeah, he's like, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah. The teacher's like, don't touch that. Everybody off the bus. And I remembered, I'm like, this is right after 9/11. So anything like that.
At first, I thought it was interesting because I wouldn't think twice about a suitcase being left on a city bus. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, somebody forgot their suitcase. Fuck, somebody's day is ruined. But this was also, yeah, it was.
I remember seeing like a backpack on a park bench, you know, that like, I was like,
yeah.
I'm not going anywhere near that shit.
Yeah. Or like you can't leave a bag sit in the airport anymore.
Mm-hmm. So everybody evacuates the bus. The bomb squad comes. Not hot bomb squad guy, just the whole bomb squad.
Yeah, but a different new hot bomb squad guy shows up. Mm-hmm. Do they have to audition for these roles with a shirtless headshot?
Yeah. You know? They show up, they take an x-ray of the suitcase, and they find a body inside. By the way they x-rayed it, I didn't know they had a handheld, like, things like that. It was like a handheld scanner thing, and it was just like not even a ball, but like, it was weird.
Yeah.
So Benson and Stabler are on the scene. The victim is a little girl. Coroner Warner is also on the scene. She's examining the body.
Like, I didn't know they had those. They might not have those. It was probably just like a computer mouse or something.
It could. Yeah. With the, like, ball that you can take out.
Yeah, and we're like, whoa.
When in actuality, we should be like, oh my God, I forgot the computer mouses the computer mice were so big.
Computer mice.
I don't know how to say that.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go back to the victim's a little girl.
Benson and Stabler are on the scene now. The victim is a little girl. Coroner Warner is also on the scene examining the body still in the suitcase. The bomb squad guy says the bus driver doesn't remember who left the suitcase. The victim has ligature marks suggesting she was tied up somewhere else before being put in the suitcase. The weird thing is she has, like, I don't know. Benson grabs the victim's hands and she's like, she has French nails. And I remember how popular that was, the French tip. You did that all the time. You had those.
Oh, the aughts were like the French tip time to shine for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she has fake nails, a pedicure, her hair's dyed blonde. She was probably in pageants. And then Stabler says, is this Jonbenét? Like making a joke, but it wasn't. Whatever.
Yeah. And Benson's like, yep, we've got ourselves a dead beauty queen. Mm-hmm. Bum bum. Theme song.
In the ME office, Coroner Warner, Benson, and Stabler are going over the findings. The rape kit was positive for fluids, so the DNA is being run. Fragments of latex and vomit were also found in the victim's mouth. Oh. Also, some sawgrass was found inside her sweater, but it grows in Florida, pretty much only in the Everglades.
Yeah.
Stabler thinks that the victim was killed in Florida and then was brought back to New York. Also, I think, what is she, like 9? The victim had a nose job. So this also supports the whole pageant thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like how Coroner Warner commented on the quality of it, too. She's like, she has a damn good nose job. Mm-hmm. Now Benson, Cragan, and Munch are doing a walk and talk through the precinct. So the suitcase is a discontinued model, but when it was available nationwide. So that's not going to really get them very far. There were partial fingerprints found, but not enough for a positive ID. Munch says they haven't gotten any results from passing out flyers yet, and there are no reports of missing kids in Florida.
Bullshit.
That's not true. I was like, is that a typo? Because that is not something that we're laughing at. But yeah.
I know, but you know what I mean? I'm laughing at the writing of it, not...
Right, yeah. No match. There's...
I don't wish there to be children missing in Florida. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't even need to say that that's implied.
I thought you were wishing there was a lot of missing kids in Florida. And also, there were no matches when he checked with the Little Angel pageant happening in Westchester. There's a few local pageants that have happened in the area recently. Cragan goes, I wonder how many of these Little Miss Angels get nose jobs when they're 9. Olivia, you and Elliot take the nip and tuck brigade. And Benny's like, do you mean plastic surgeon? And Cragan's like, I mean the old 2-stepperoo, skidoo, scalpel club, the slice and dicery, the rhinoplasty patsy. I could not... He constantly go talk to the nip and tuck brigade. Be clear. You're a cop. You're like you're giving instructions
you're
about who they're shouldn't they? I don't know. I get that you like to talk in your old timey cute dad captain speak or whatever. So Cragan's sending Benny and Stabes to talk to plastic surgeons, and Cragan is going to go with Munch to talk to pageant people. Cragan and Munch go to the Little Miss Angel pageant rehearsal at the Banner Hall in Long Island. The director's instructing all the girls on stage, step, stop, smile, and twirl. This woman looks like she was a former member of the FLDS, but left, but it's all she's ever known, so she doesn't know how else to do her hair.
Yeah.
They show her a photo of the victim on the table and traumatize her a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't. I mean, what else do you have?
Like dead on the slab.
I don't know if there's another option, or prep her.
At least say like, hey, brace yourself. I'm going to show you something. It's a dead body. We need you to ID. Say something. Don't just be
say
like,
something.
Like it's a Pokemon card, you know? Like, it's like she's going to be thinking about that all day.
Yeah. So this woman, they show her this photo. She's like, she doesn't recognize the Vic, but she's willing to share files of the Little Miss Angels
that are right next to her.
That are within
right
arm's
next to her
reach.
Knees.
Cragan gets a phone call, so Munch continues to question this woman. He asks her about security and access to the pageants, and she's like, it is pretty tight. You need to pay $25 to get in here. And Munch is like, what? Fucking yikes. What?
Yeah.
Cragan comes back from his itty-bitty teeny-tiny phone call and says that the Nassau PD put out a missing persons report 1 hour prior for Cherie Lathan. Benny and Stabes are going to go talk to Cherie's parents, and at the exact same amazing moment, Munch finds a pageant file for Cherie, and yup, looks like it's her.
Yep. She's like in the files of people that have tried out but like didn't make the cut.
Yeah. Now Benson and Stabler are at Cherie's house with Cherie's parents. Dad is a very subdued Conan O'Brien, and Mom is playing Patsy Ramsey. Dad tells him that Cherie has been doing pageants for 4 years, and he got her a nose job. He's super intense about the pageant stuff. You got to have that competitive edge if you want to win. You know, he was... This entire time, Mom's checked out. She's in shock with tears in her eyes, just like kind of staring at the floor. And everything she says is just a biting remark at Dad.
Yeah, like it's very clear that he wanted to do the pageant stuff, and she didn't really want to. And I thought this was all going to come back to like them, like Dad or something, or like whatever, but it fucking never see him again.
So Stabler wants to know what took Mom and Dad so long to report Cherie missing. Dad had taken her to get new headshots before dropping her off at her friend Amy Prescott's for a sleepover, and was supposed to go straight to school the next morning, so they assumed that's where she was. What parents are letting their 8 or 9-year-olds sleep over at their friend's house on a school night? I had to like trick my dad into letting me stay over at a friend's house, and I was in high school.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, they assume that's where she was. Dad also says that the family went to Disney World in Florida at Christmas time, so that probably explains the grass found in her sweater. He didn't say the grass in her sweater part, but that's what we were supposed to deduce from him being like, we just went to Disney World. I mean, I'm still skeptical about like that being the implication because it's March in this universe, so that was over 3 months ago.
Right.
TBD.
Yeah.
Benson makes the cringe emoji face and asks Dad for a DNA sample. Ugh, standard procedure. And he gets upset. He's like, I worshipped Cherie. I would never hurt her.
He's a terrible actor. Also, I love that in the notes Alyssa put quotation marks around worshipped.
Oh,
like
yeah.
She was also suspecting it was like something to do with the dad.
Yeah.
Because it was a weird, it's like a weird thing to say. Yeah.
Dad gets upset and says he worshipped Cherie. That's Alyssa nodding at us like,
And Alyssa's like, okay, sure, Jan. Yeah.
I almost want to look back at her because sometimes she'll send us the notes and she'll be like, I have a theory.
Yeah.
And she'll like, and we haven't been.
I haven't checked those. I was thinking about that like 2 days ago too.
What did she say? Oh, she just sums up some of her frustrations. I'll read this at the end. After we Toyota, I'll let you know Alyssa's gripe.
So now we're at the Prescott residence. Amy's mom tells Benson and Stabler that Cherie walked to the bus stop alone. Amy had stayed home with the flu. And then you can see Amy, and she's really sad, and she's sitting there with soup and crackers. She says that there's a creepy guy in 10th grade named Kevin, and he would harass and follow Cherie and Amy and tell Cherie she was hot and watch their gymnastics practice.
10th
In the
grade.
precinct.
Ugh.
What?
Just creep. Like, where's? Ugh.
Yeah.
Go home. Go home, Kevin.
Fuck you, Kevin. I hate that name for men. For grown men, it's fucking weird.
Kevin.
Okay, now we're at the precinct. Munch and Toots are going over what they know about Kevin with Cragan.
Toots is rocking a throwback to 1994 Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's famous fanny pack pic, wearing his black turtleneck with a gold chain on the outside of his shirt.
No, he's not.
Yes, he was.
I missed it. Fuck. So this Kevin kid, he's 15. He has a fucking website where he posts stories, and one is about, quote, 9-year-old flesh and how he wanted to take a bite out of Cherie. Ugh, like it was so firm and ugh.
Oh,
It's like,
God.
whatever. This kid is 15.
Yeah.
Kevin also recently got a 6th grader to pose in a bikini for photos and said it was for an art project. What the fuck is up with this kid? Who hurt him?
Yeah, he is an up-and-coming serial killer.
Yeah. So you can see through the glass Kevin and his dad. They're in an interview room and Kevin's dad is like yelling at him.
Yeah.
I love Kevin's dad, by the way.
We've met Kevin's dad twice already in seasons 1 and 3 of SVU. Kevin was in Wet Hot American Summer. He was credited as the caped boy, so
Okay.
he was also in The Sopranos.
Yeah. Okay. Toots and Munch go in the interview room with Kevin and Kevin's dad. Kevin does not want to give his DNA sample. He's like, I have rights. You guys are fascists. And
He goes, you guys are just like Nazis. Like it's a thing. It's like, what's the word I'm looking for? You guys are just like, and then you say the most extreme thing. You guys are just like, I don't know, you're like Nazi-ish, kind of. What?
his dad like cuts him off and he's like, he's going to give you DNA.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dad, no.
It's my rights.
It's my rights, Dad. And they're like, he's like, you fascist Nazis. Blah, blah. And then he stands up and his dad grabs him and he yanks him back down. And he's like, sit down, you little prick. And then he yanks out a piece of his hair and he's like, is this good for you guys?
Yeah.
It's weird how sometimes, remember there was that one episode where the guy had paint on his pants and they think he like jacked off on a fucking subway, remember? Mm-hmm. And he like was terrified of needles and didn't want to give blood and they like had to hold him down, but then they just take a piece of this guy's hair.
Yeah. I don't know. This was the scene they needed for this episode. That was the scene they needed for that episode.
Yeah. It's like, no, we can only use needles in this episode.
This is a needle
This week.
episode.
We're out of the hair scanner.
The hair scanner's broken. The ball, the thing came off the bottom of the hair scanner and the ball rolled out and we couldn't find it. And we're like, does anybody have an avocado? That was a mouse joke. Remember we were earlier?
Tasha, your laugh. Okay.
You know how much John makes fun of my fucking laugh all the time? I can't find joy in anything because if I laugh too hard at something, John will be like,
No, I love when I get one of those laughs out of you. That's my fucking favorite. Also, there's different tones to it. Like that is I am satisfied with my joke. Like that you did a certain one. Other ones are just like that was really funny. There's different.
Oh my God, my
levels to
laughs
it.
are like, you can read my laughs the way a mom of a newborn baby can read their cries.
You're like, I'm like, she's got to poop. She needs to poop. That's a poop laugh. Okay, now we're in the ME office. The DNA from Kevin's hair isn't a match for the DNA from the fluids found in Cherie. Coroner Warner tells them that blood traces from the fluids have a very high level of progesterone, which could be used for cancer treatment or gender-confirming hormonal transition. Munch is like, hey guys, this is given to sex offenders to reduce their sex drive. Mm-hmm. There is also synthetic testosterone in the fluids. Toots and Munch are convinced that a sex offender is trying to reverse his chemical castration. Oof, damn.
In Cragan's office, Stabler, Huang, and Cragan are talking deets. Stabler says that New York doesn't chemically castrate sex offenders. 9 states do, and Georgia is the closest one to them. I did a little research on this. To this day, there's still only 9 states that do. I believe that Wisconsin's one of them, question mark? I didn't write that down, but I'm not sure. Stabes also doesn't think that it makes sense that it would be someone doing it voluntarily, otherwise they wouldn't be taking testosterone. Like they were court ordered, obviously. Huang's like, good job, dum-dum. Testosterone would fuck up the depot shot real quick. Huang says that pageants offer offenders good access to victims. They sexualize little girls, and the ligature marks are intricate and indicate fantasizing about the abuse. Cragan wants a list of those who were castrated, and from that wants a list of those with child abduction priors. So now in the precinct, Munch is trying to hear whatever's going on the other side of his phone call while Stabler is town crier yelling about the bureaucratic red tape of trying to get a hold of this information. There's no centralized database for chemical castration and no leads. Stabler gets serious with his fingers laced behind his head in front of a corkboard with a U.S. map on it and a few states highlighted. One of them was Wisconsin. So Stabler brings up that Coroner Warner thought the sawgrass from Florida was from Cherie's trip to Disney with her family, but that grass is exclusive to the Everglades, which is south of Orlando. Well, Toots thinks that maybe the perp transferred the grass onto Cherie. There are 3 chemically castrated suspects in Florida. One died in a car crash. Why even bring him up? There's 2. And the parole officer for the other 2, I mean, I don't know. Like, oh, well, I guess, when did he die? When did he die? I guess that's the question.
No, you're right. There's 2.
Yeah. I mean, unless maybe he died, like, this morning. Like, oh my God, he died this morning. We've still got to look into him. I don't know. But also, who cares? I'm like, oh, he's a sex offender and he's in Florida and he died in a car crash. Who gives a shit? All of those things I don't care about. So the parole officer for the other 2 say that they're squeaky clean. And Stabes is like, a squeaky clean sex offender. Sure, Jan. Here comes Munch. Rob Canati from Milwaukee. Started chemical castration 4 years ago. He had a supervised relocation to Jersey City. So maybe he bopped down to Florida. Stabes innocently asked, oh, what do you get pinched for? And Munch is like, oh, nothing that relates. He just kidnapped a 10-year-old little girl from a beauty pageant and tried to assault her in his car before she escaped.
He's a possible suspect.
It could be him. Who knows? Could be anybody. At the Jersey City Library in Jersey City, New Jersey. Benson and Stabler find Rob putting books on shelves. This guy, later on, I didn't think this, but right off the bat, I was like, oh my God, this guy looks like a young Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall.
Oh my God.
The crossing guard, Why is that the one thing that's stuck in my head? The crossing guard.
Well, because it actually applies
to this. Yeah, I guess it does. As soon as Benny and Stabes let him know who they are, he asks if a child had been attacked, because why else would the cops be there? Eye roll. What an inconvenience for you. Oh, was a child attacked? Ugh. Of course you're here. God.
I'm just glad you said attacked rather than like, was a child,
I mean, you're like, I like that he said that. The very next thing he says makes his face so punchable. Benson asks if he had seen Cherie Lathan, and he responds with, it's hard to keep track of so many little lovelies. Stabler does not like that. None of us do.
This is some of the best physical acting I've ever seen Stabler do.
But it's because he has experience, because he moves past Benson and high school football jock slaps that fucking dork's books out of his hand.
Like hard too, like while making eye contact.
So Rob's like, he gives him whatever his alibi is. He says, I was at home watching Nickelodeon. Yuck, 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 yuck. But he lives alone, so nobody can vouch for him. As soon as he says that, Benson's like, oh, you need to be coming with us. Whoop, I got a phone call. She answers the phone in the background, and Rob explains to Stabes that it couldn't have been him if there was ejaculate. And Stabes doesn't get it. And Rob says that when the urges started to come back, he had them cut off. Stabes still doesn't get it.
He's like, who?
Yeah.
Who?
So Rob drops trow and shows Stabes that his balls are literally gone. Now Stabler gets it. He goes, okay, put your Johnson back in your pants.
He didn't just like pull out his junk. He 4-year-old at a urinal,
yes.
like dropped his pants all the way
Belts
down to
around his
shoes.
ankles. Yeah.
In his job at his place of work.
I was trying to figure out what book section he was in, but I don't think it would have mattered.
I don't think, yeah.
So just as old Rob flops his wang out in the public library, Benny gets off the phone and needs to be caught up real fucking quick because she's like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like she just comes back to what was a conversation to a guy with his dick out.
Her face, too. It was like, oh my God. It was like not great.
So she picks her jaw up off the floor and says the call was from Toots. It was about one of the offenders, Tommy Hedges, in Florida. His mom lives 2 towns over from Cherie's family.
Ah.
That's outside of New York City. That's 2 blocks. At Tommy's mom's house,
this fucking late.
Stuart's mom from Mad TV shows Toots and Munch around Tommy's room. JK, it's Tommy's mom. She's wearing an insane Christmas sweater and a church lady wig. She says that Tommy hasn't been to visit during parole. There's a big van in the driveway, so Toots wants to look inside of it, but she says she hasn't driven it in over a year and doesn't even know where the keys are. Mom tells Munch and Toots that she thinks that Tommy's changed and his offenses are in the past. He's changed. He's on meds now and found a job in Florida. So they're like, okay, whatever. Cut to outside in front of the house. Munch is suspicious about how clean the van is for having sat for over a year. He's also wearing a scuba suit under his Darkwing Duck costume. I think he's just wearing ear protection. Like, it's cold outside. But I'm like, is that a fucking scuba suit? Is that neoprene? He thinks they should bring Mom in for questioning, but Toots' raccoon hovered over the trash can on the curb and says he doesn't want to bring Mom in. Looky here, Toots finds liquid testosterone and a box with a Spanish label. Tommy's mom comes outside and yells, Struart, get out of the trash! That's private property!
Look what I can do! Look what I can do!
You can't just go through that. You'll ruin your tough skins. She didn't want him going through her trash. Toots tells her it's on the street, so it's public. Now, why don't you explain this testosterone prescription from last week with Tommy's name on it? She says, you have to understand, he actually is better. He found a job at an advertising agency in New York Monday through Thursday, and then he flies to Miami to get his injections. He's cured. Sure.
At Manson and Branch ad agency, Benson and Stabler find Tommy at work at his desk. They fucking arrest him for parole violation, and they take his work laptop. Everybody is around, like, looking around like, what? Tommy? What's going on, Tom?
She takes the laptop like, whoop. The guys in the background are like, what is that? You sent a TikTok or something, or you posted a TikTok. It was like every extra in SVU, and it was just somebody being really like, whoa, whoa, in the background, like really over the top.
Like, super trying to not look at the camera.
These guys were, I mean, and I watched this like right after. See those guys?
They were like,
I don't know. Carrots and peas.
Okay, so now we're in the precinct interview room with Tommy, Benson, and Stabler. This dude, he's like, I can't find work in Florida because of my record. Oh my God, you don't understand. It's really, really hard for us after we ruin people's lives. You know what I mean? Oh my God, you guys, you don't get it. So he had to come. He chose to come to New York. He's been lying to his parole officer. They think he's working from home as a telemarketer. His parole officer, I guess, isn't really fucking around much, but Tommy flies out to Miami each Friday for his meeting with his parole officer and to get his progesterone shot. Stabler asks about the testosterone from the garbage, and then Tommy's like, I just want to be fucking normal. I want my body to fucking be normal.
Well, everybody else wants you not to abduct children and ruin their lives.
Yeah. But it's real hard for you. Benson asks him if he knows Cherie and shows him a photo of her. He denies knowing her, of course. Benson and Stabler tell him the steps that they can take to prove it was him, that he killed Cherie, and that basically, no matter what, he's going to get in all kinds of trouble because he's not where he's supposed to be, first of all. So no matter what, he's automatically going back to prison for 10 years.
Yeah.
Then Stabler touches his shoulder, and he's like, dude, what happened? What happened with Cherie? Tommy starts crying. I hate grown men that go by Tommy and not Tom. I don't feel sorry for you. It doesn't make me think that you're more vulnerable because you go by fucking Tommy. Like Billy. I
have a bud named Bobby, and he's been really trying to... He's campaigning for people to call him Bob now, but he's a junior, so like his dad was Bob, and then so he went by Bobby his whole life, and he's like, I'm a dad. Like, he's got all of these professional things in his life, and he's like, I'm working on going by Bob. Like, that'd be I'm a man. I'm a man, and I'm like, I've only known you as Bobby
or Robert
Robert. Well, they call their son Robert because he's a third.
Oh, okay.
So they're
I mean, imagine your wife being like, oh, Bobby.
Ew.
That's like weird.
I mean, none of that's...
Oh, Tommy.
Oh, Tommy. Oh,
Tommy. Oh my God, Tommy. It's so big, Tommy.
Ew.
You're a grown man, Tommy.
You're an adult man. You have your own apartment. Oh, Tommy. You got your own phone plan now. Your insurance is under your name.
Oh, you've probably taken a couple cooking classes, Tommy. Oh, Tommy, you should get a dog.
Tommy. Oh, Tommy, your car needs its oil changed. Oh, it's already on your to-do list.
Oh, God. It's time for a tune-up. You do that, don't you, Tommy? Because you're grown.
You can do it yourself. Oh, I'm coming.
Oh, shit.
Gross.
Oh, my God. Get that dog a fenced-in backyard, Tommy. Okay, what the fuck?
You have an alert on your phone to make sure to give that dog its heart guard every month. You're a man.
Oh, my God. I bet you get your 10,000 steps in every day, Tommy. Why?
Why? Tommy, talk to me about your 401k.
Oh, my God. Your office has a window, Tommy. Okay. Tommy starts crying.
Wow, I'm not laughing at a grown man crying. Grown men can cry.
Of course, I'm laughing at the transition.
Right.
There was no way to transition from that to anything.
For sure.
To
anything.
Yeah. Tommy starts crying and he admits to the crime. Mm-hmm. He says he had seen her walking around with his friends and thought she looked like a little princess. Ugh, gross. He offered Cherie a ride and he assaulted her in the van. That's the one at his mom's house. Mm-hmm. He said he just wanted to talk to her. That was it. Whatever. After she started crying, he gagged her to make her stop because she wouldn't be quiet. And then he went outside to get some air. And when he came back in, she wasn't moving. Benson asked him if he had hurt any other kids. He says no because he thought he could control himself until he read a story and saw pictures on a website.
Ooh, what story? I bet we're going to find out.
Mm-hmm. Cragan busts in. He's like, you guys, Tawwwwmy's got some shit for us in the lab. So now we're with fucking Tawwwwmy. We're going over what they found on Tommy's laptop. 40 quote kitty porns, which we now are child sex abuse images, hidden on his computer. Mm-hmm. Then they found a little thing.
I found this really interesting. They use S tools, which is like based in stenography, Greek for hidden messages. They really get into it. And Stabler's like, oh, so they just send each other messages with the Stegosaurus stuff? It's like, why do we have to do that?
I skipped it because I was like, this is pointless. I hate you.
Okay.
The Stegosaurus stuff. And I was like, next.
He's like, pass.
So they found a little like guide thingy called The Story of Janet. Mm. It's basically a how-to guide on how to stalk, kidnap, and rape girls. In the like digital fucking packet or book or whatever, the girl in the guide was tied up just like Cherie had been. Ugh. Tommy kidnapped Cherie and copied exactly what he saw on the internet.
In the precinct, Cabot and Stabler are walking and talking about the child abuse story Tawwwwmmy found. Stabler argues to Cabot that the person who made the guide Tommy used to kill Cherie should also be guilty of murder. Cabot says that the author is guilty of distribution of images of child sexual abuse, but not murder. They bring this to Huang, who's minding his own fucking business at a desk. They walked up and the speed at which he switched into I'm in this fucked up conversation mode was incredible. Mm-hmm. Cabot goes, you'd be hard pressed to prove a jury that the producer of the images is culpable. And Stabler goes to Huang, what do you think? And Huang's like, immediately with his stats. He goes, a Canadian study found that 90% of child sex abusers use child sex abuse imagery as well. Huang then explains how the images Tommy had can influence behavior and actions. Cabot's not buying it, but Huang says that Tommy was already susceptible to being highly influenced by it because he had already offended before. And he's with Stabes on the whole Cherie might still be alive if Tommy hadn't seen these images thing. And Cabot continues to be frustrated, right? I think she was hoping that Huang would be on her side. Like, yeah, you can't really blame these pictures for this, but instead she just got another person jumping down her throat to make her magically produce shit.
I feel like this is hard because technically, I mean, not even technically, Coroner Warner says that Cherie like choked on her own vomit. Mm-hmm. What the guy did was fucked up and terrible. I mean, isn't that like some sort of version of manslaughter rather than murder?
Yeah.
And then let alone they're trying to charge somebody for pictures that they saw on the, that's a lot of like.
Yeah, a lot of leaps, yeah. Cabot agrees with you.
Yeah.
And Cabot's like, oh my God, I can't indict pictures. And Stabler's like, you can indict producers and distributors. Cabot's getting frustrated. OMG, Stabes, they could be anywhere in the world. This is the internet. man.
Yeah.
So Stabler then gives her information that he should have led with. Okay, the crime lab found the website Tommy got the guide from with the Erin registry, which is the American registry for internet numbers. They found the address. Cyberloves Incorporated in fucking Queens.
They could be anywhere in the fucking world, but they're in Queens. Sure, Jeremy.
2 blocks.
You know what I mean?
Oh my God, they're right down the street. There they are. Cabot's like...
You hear my laugh? That was so weird.
Cabot's like, yeah, bust them. Do it.
Now we're at Cyberlove Incorporated in Queens, New York, 2 blocks away from the fucking precinct. Detectives bust in and raid the headquarters of Cyberloves and walk in on a scene being filmed that looks super pedophilic.
Yeah.
So there's this like woman in the scene. She's 19, she says. She's holding a teddy bear and she has pigtails and they're like in a kid's room.
Yeah.
They ask for proof of her age and she gives them her entire birth certificate. And she like carries it around because she's sick of cops busting her when she's, quote, modeling.
Yeah.
They show her a photo of the girl in the stalking guide. Remember, what was it called again? Story of Janet?
Yeah.
This woman doesn't know who the girl is in the photo. They ask who fucking signs her paychecks, and she's like, Stanley Billings with XL Entertainment. Now we're in Stanley's office.
He plays Robin Williams' dad in the movie Jack. Remember, Robin Williams is a 10-year-old who looks 40 because of a pituitary gland disorder, and I cry every time I watch it.
It's so sad. He graduates high school, and he's 98.
Yeah.
God, why did he have to go to high school?
I loved that movie. And I loved him in this. I couldn't hate him. I couldn't hate him in this episode because I'm like, oh my God, you're Jack's dad. He was such a good dad.
I forgot he was in it, so I did hate him.
Oh, okay.
Now we're in Stanley's office. He admits to selling the story of Janet, the how-to guide on the website, but insists that the girl in the story is 18. They make her look younger with, quote, youth enhancement software.
Does he just mean filters?
Yeah, I think so. That must be, yeah.
It sounded super high-tech back then, and it's like, yeah, she's on fucking Instagram. I like how I'm making fun of his knowledge of technology when I literally grew up fucking being able to rewind something with a pencil.
Right, yeah. This dude fucking Stanley says that the porn he makes is actually therapeutic. It helps give pedophiles a cathartic release and protects kids in the meantime. And I was like, blink, blink, blink.
Retina's detaching.
Stabler is looking pissed. Benson calls the story a fucking murder manual and that it's responsible for Cherie's death.
Yeah.
But fucking Stanley knows his rights. He knows he hasn't broken the law. He's like, it's freedom of fucking speech. Scoot, scoot, scoot. It's just a story, blah, blah, blah. Okay?
Yep.
Scoot, scoot, scoot.
I know.
All the way to court. Now we're in the lab with Tawwwwmmy. Benson and Stabler go over the images in the story of Janet. Tawwwwmmy thinks it's possible that the girl in the story was aged down with software, like Stanley said. Tawwwwmmy then shows them a photo of Benson and ages her down, and it's super weird. And I'm wondering if it's actually like an actual picture of her.
It's just an old photo of Mariska. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But they were like, whoa.
And she was like, oh my God.
In the precinct, Cragan is outraged. Are you telling me these bastards can make virtual child abuse sex material and not be breaking the law? And Cabot's like, yeah, it's nuts. Yup. But he and Stabes go on and on. Like, if they just get mad enough about it, it'll change the laws. And like she's tried to tell Stabes before, Cabot says it's a bitch to try and prosecute this shit, okay? This is a circle. We walk in a circle, and it always ends up back at the same place, fucking trying to make Cabot perform a magic trick.
Yeah, like our technology and the laws weren't matching up yet. You know what I mean?
Our technology advanced so much faster than our laws are able to be processed.
To apply, to find out that that's bad.
Yeah.
You know, like
people that are going to do bad things with it are like going to figure it out before the law figures out that they might do it.
It's actually hard to explain.
Yeah, it probably isn't. We're stupid. I'm
like, law on the internet, and then you can't get in trouble, but then they can later.
And I'm like, yeah, but they should. And you're like, yeah. Do you believe in life after? Stanley will use freedom of speech to protect himself. Cabot is so patient. So she's trying to explain this to them, but then she's like, and she gets a light bulb. If they can prove that Cyberlove's guide helped Tommy follow through on his crime, then they can argue that it was facilitation. But she says, ... she says, I'll have to make a deal with the devil.
AKA Tom.
Cabot meets with Tommy and his lawyer in a Rikers Island interview room. Sweet Mr. Mariska Hargitay, Trevor Langan is his lawyer, all right? Cabot wants Tommy to give up Stanley Billings, and she says that she'll take the death penalty off the table. And lawyer Trevor says no, because Tommy's not going to talk unless he knows there's a, quote, light at the end of the tunnel, meaning he's not going to have life in prison. Cabot agrees to murder in the second degree, depending on what Tommy has to offer up, and he could end up with 25 years in prison. Cabot's like, okay, cool, murder in the second degree, but it depends on what you've got to give me, okay? And I'll give you 25 years in prison. And he's like, deal. So then they go on with this interview. Tommy tells her that at first the emails he got from Excel were ads for websites with sample stories. Then he got emailed a sample of the story of Janet, so he signed up for the website. He ordered testosterone after reading the whole story because he wanted his body to feel the way it used to. Benny and Stabes fucking bust into Stanley's office. Cocky ass arrest him for facilitating the murder of Cherie. He is flabbergasted, and he's like, you have got to be kidding me. What an inconvenience to me this is.
What an inconvenience to me this be. In the precinct, Cabot and Stabler are going over the fucking case. Cabot's convinced that she's going to lose this case. The facilitation charge is a total reach, and I fucking agree. Although it's fucking gross, I'm just saying. All of a sudden, this fucking guy walks in, and he's like, Cabot. And she's like, oh, Barry? It's her old professor. He's fucking representing Stanley Billings. He's going to argue for the First Amendment supporting Stanley. Cabot and Barry kind of go toe-to-toe, like arguing free speech and what's covered under the Supreme Court. But they're both smiling. It looks like they're kind of having fun. And Stabler keeps jumping in all pissed, you know?
Yeah, my favorite about this is that these two law scholars having the most educated debate and Stabler jumping in to not help at all.
Just to be pissy, yeah.
Barry's like, all my client published was a work of pornography protected by the Supreme Court itself. And Stabler's like, yeah, well, Billings is a sleazebag who turns women into little girls. He's gross.
Yeah. And they both kind of look over and they're like, yeah, we know.
Yep.
You know?
That's what we're talking about. We're doing the smart people version. And he's like, I'm mad about it, though.
Yeah, we know. Why are we standing by his desk? But yeah, they're kind of talking about society evolving with technology and law and stuff, like we were just talking about.
Stabler doesn't join into the conversation, but like he just keeps interrupting their train of thought by being like, shaking his head.
Yeah. He just gets up. He's like, I don't like child molesters. We're like, yeah.
Don't like it, Barry.
Yeah, we know.
And he just points at him for a long time.
He kicks out an invisible chair, but the guy's standing, and he's like, what is he doing? Why is he just kicking behind me?
He slaps the imaginary books out of his hand.
Harumph.
I mean, but like, yeah, I agree with Stabler. Like, I wouldn't be able to, like, intellectually debating something that hurts someone. That they're like, well, the pros of this and his rights and whatever. When you just want to like fucking strangle somebody who killed a child, it's like I do get that.
Right.
I'm not. It's just fun to make fun of Stabler.
In the trial, Coroner Warner takes the stand to go over her findings with Cherie and how she died. So she confirms that the way Cherie was tied up and killed are identical to what was in the story of Janet. Now Barry gets up and asks Coroner Warner contradictory questions. He's like, oh, so, you know, did a website kill her?
Ugh.
Did a book kill her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she's like, no, obviously they don't have legs or hands or anything, you know?
The fact that, yeah, or autonomy or thought or fucking, what are we talking about? Nothing grinds my gears more in a courtroom more than somebody asking dummy softball kid questions to prove a point. When it's like, you're smarter than this, and you can be like, if I was on a jury and a lawyer did this and I was going to take it personally, I would be like, you're acting like I'm stupid.
Right.
And it would influence how I voted.
Right. So he points out that Cherie died from choking on her own vomit. That's what killed her. Coroner Warner is not like too pumped, but whatever. Not whatever, just we're in court.
Yeah.
She can't be like, you prick, you know?
Right.
Now Tommy's on the stand. Cabot is interviewing him. He admits to raping Cherie. He tells the court that he received child sex abuse ads from Cyberlove. After he got out of jail. He admits to copying the story of Janet when he killed Cherie. Now Barry is talking to Tommy, and he is asking him these questions that are kind of making it look like Tommy is trying to blame someone else for what he did. Barry asked Tommy, did you enjoy kidnapping Cherie? And Tommy admits that he liked it. He liked what he did when he kidnapped Cherie, even though he knew it was wrong, and says that it's his fault. He like knows what it was wrong, which I don't give a shit. if you know it's wrong.
Then don't do it.
Whatever, you know?
Yeah.
What?
Then don't do it.
Yeah. Stanley takes the stand.
Like, I want to have $1 million extra. I can get it by being really dishonest and fucking doing illegal shit, but I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean?
What's the illegal shit and what are the steps that you would take to get it? Stanley takes the stand. He's being interviewed by Cabot. He fucking calls pedophiles, quote, people with youth preferences. I was like, wow. He said he made Cyberlove to have, quote, legal content for them. This guy is a fucking whatever.
He's a sleaze bag.
He's a fucking sleaze. Yeah. So Barry and everybody's all fucking pissed and getting riled up because this is insane. Barry wants them to go to the bench and talk to the judge. Barry says to the judge, Cabot is far from proving anything, and the only reason if Stanley gets convicted is because the jury is emotional because he created content that pedophiles can like, you know? They don't actually have any proof.
Yeah. He's a pedophilia facilitator.
Yeah. Judge agrees, and she says that they're going to dismiss the case on prejudice unless Cabot can prove the defense. Stanley had prior knowledge that Tommy was likely to commit the crime by the next day. So she's got to figure some shit out.
At Mulligan's, Cabot's having a drink at the bar and going over notes when Cragan pops over her shoulder. Tough day, nothing a half beer can't fix. Why am I here? I'm in recovery. I like their onion rings. Bartender, a ginger ale with red vine straws, please. Coming right up. They do the whole, like, he's in recovery thing. Like, he, like, hesitates before he orders a ginger beer.
Yeah. And he's like, a wise man said, I can resist anything but temptation. Yeah. And you're like, was it really hard for you to get a ginger ale at a bar? Like,
you shouldn't be
how
in
long
here
have you
then.
not been drinking? Yeah.
So he sits down with Cabot. She says that she doesn't think the company emailed sex offenders by accident. And that's what I was thinking earlier, too, because I was like, these are targeted ads. Because, like, the kind of content that would trigger, they're not just flushing the world with fucking Stuart's mom isn't getting child sex abuse imitation imagery that's legal by, like, fucking loopholes and shit. After Cragan gets his ginger ale, he's like, as a wise man says, I can resist everything except temptation. And Cabot does that Paul Rudd and Wet Hot double take at Cragan and is like, and Cragan's like, what did I say? She's like, Tommy says he tried to resist. She wants to find out how much temptation the emails to Tommy provided. At Rikers, Cabot's going over the details of the emails with Tommy. And Tommy's like, yeah, I got like 50 or 60 emails from the company, but I only opened one. He kept selecting the opt-out button so he could get taken off the mailing list, but it didn't work. He just kept getting the emails. Cabot, you clever gal. So now Cabot's meeting with Stanley and fucking Barry. Cabot wants to know why Tommy's 21 requests to be removed from the mailing list were ignored. Stanley says that he's got too many employees to look into the matter. Like, I don't know. Somebody was getting them. This has nothing to do with me. Barry still can't help but be Cabot's professor, and he's so proud of her for that. And he's like, good try, Alex. He puts a star sticker on her forehead and writes off the onslaught of emails as a computerized oversight and says...
not a smoking gun.
Yeah, he's like, aggressive advertising isn't against the law. This doesn't prove anything. And Cabot goes, fine, we'll just have to see what the jury has to say, and backs out the door so she doesn't have to break eye contact. Pterodactyl scream. She's gonna fucking get him.
Okay, so Barry's talking to the jury. He's like completely defending the free speech and Stanley and how it's okay for him to make this content, and that Cabot super can't prove that Stanley knew that Tommy tried to unsubscribe from the emails, that it was like down the chain of his fucking employees. He is responsible.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
He's in charge of the company, whatever.
Right. Well, especially when you're dealing with such... you're playing fast and loose with some really fucking touchy content. So even if that is your excuse, like pleading ignorant, come the fuck on, dude.
Yeah. Like, if you're a leader of a team and your team loses, you get blamed for that.
If you're a leader of the team and the team is making pornography to look like child abuse, you should be on top of that.
Yeah. And under 6 feet of ground. Barry says that Stanley only produced that one story, the story of Janet, and it's totally legal. And Stanley didn't fucking know Tommy. He didn't know what he was going to do or what he had done in the past and what he would do if he saw the story of Janet emails. Now Cabot's talking to the jury. She's like, yeah, dude, Tommy's totally fucking guilty, but Stanley is also guilty. She's saying that Stanley made this and it was a dangerous tool in Tommy's hands.
Yes.
And the ignoring the 21 requests to stop sending the emails is bullshit. Yeah, like she said, Stanley is responsible as the owner of the company. This is just hard for me because it's like, I know that it wasn't a good thing to read. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it is Stanley's fault that Tommy did this, and I think we're kind of focusing on the wrong part of the story here, but I also do think it was super irresponsible, and he's being fucking legally held responsible for it, you know?
Yeah, I suppose he was being predatory with the email stuff. Well, I mean, and in general, and what he's creating. And so the fucking jury goes to deliberate. They find Stanley guilty of facilitation, and his fucking face, he did that double take, and the jury, he was like, he could not believe, he was completely shocked.
The camera cuts to Cabot whispering to herself, holy shit, it actually worked. She was surprised as well.
Yeah. So fucking Stanley's getting hauled away, and he's like, I didn't do anything. I don't understand. And Barry's like, it's okay. I mean, it's not okay for him, but...
Right.
So outside of the courtroom, Barry approaches Cabot to congratulate her, and he says, no, this is great. Like, I'll get the conviction turned over in an appeal. He's like, you did a really good job not stomping on the Constitution. And then she's like, well, the Constitution could actually use some fucking stomping right now.
Yeah, she said that. And he's like, in this case, everybody won. And she's like, not Cherie Lathan,
bro.
The victim, remember?
Yeah. Toyota. Yeah.
So, okay, back to Alyssa. When Alyssa sends us the notes, sometimes she has a commentary about the episode, and she goes, this is my gripe. Why was Tommy's mom never brought back to get yelled at by Benson for having Tommy at the house and letting him use the van, but we had to suffer through the creepiness of a castrated sex offender dropping trow in a public library? But I'm not Dick Wolf, so shrug.
I mean...
Yeah.
She fucking harbored a
I agree with you, Alyssa. This is my gripe. We had to suffer through the... in a public library? There's so many exclamation points and question marks. I love that. Keep sending that shit, Alyssa. I love getting your notes and then seeing how angry you are. Toyota. Okay, let's do this chaser.
How long is it, you think, the chaser?
The chaser? It's a hot minute. Why?
Like an hour?
No.
Oh, okay. I just wondered.
It could be a year, dude. Fucking Jonbenét Ramsey. There is so much to this shit. We would be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't know many, many details of this 25-year-old case, okay?
I am that person.
I mean, well, you knew about the pineapple thing.
That's all that I remember. I just know that there was pineapples. I don't know. I think she choked on it or something.
No.
Wait, her brother was pissed because she took a pineapple?
That's one of the theories.
Okay.
That's one of the theories. But yeah, I didn't have to do a ton of research. I did a bunch, but there was so much stuff that I was just able to like put out a skeleton from memory because it is one of those cases that I have like seen and heard and whatever so many times. I don't even feel like I'm like obsessed with this case, but I just have heard and seen so much about it. The story has an overwhelming amount of information and a very recent update that I'll get to at the end. But I was trying to think of a way to break it up so that I could give all of the angles justice without turning this into an entirely separate podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm breaking it up into three main storylines that police and the public have debated on for years: the parents, the intruder, and the brother. But let's start with the crime. In 1996, Jonbenét Ramsey was 6 years old. She was a little pageant queen living with her parents, John and Patsy, and her big brother, 9-year-old Burke, in Boulder, Colorado. John had 3 older children from a previous marriage as well, John Jr., Elizabeth, and Melinda. They were much older and living away from home by then. Mom Patsy woke up on December 26, 1996 at about 5:30 a.m. to find a ransom note at the bottom of the staircase claiming that Jonbenét had been kidnapped.
The day after Christmas?
Yes.
What?
The note said, quote, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter.
Okay.
Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. Victory. SBTC.
So what did John do for a living?
He had just sold a business, so it was like publicly known that they were worth millions of dollars. So upon reading this letter, Patsy freaks out and calls 911. The police arrive and do a cursory search of the house, but found nothing. After some time, a detective asked John Ramsey to go through the house to see if anything was out of place or missing. This was hours later. So it was about 1:30 p.m. when John found Jonbenét's body in the basement wine cellar. A rope was tied around her neck and extended to also include being tied around her right wrist. She had an 8-inch fracture on her skull, 2 stun gun marks, one on her face and one on her back. There were also wooden fibers found inside of her, indicating that she had been sexually assaulted.
Stun guns?
Yeah. So when he found her, he picked her up and ran up the stairs screaming. The issues in this investigation began immediately. Not one detective who was initially on this case had any homicide experience. There was almost none in the entire Boulder Police Department. Very shortly into it, Denver PD was like, dude, we have lots of experience with homicides. Let us help you. They had homicide experts. They had all of these resources that they were offering up to Boulder PD, but the Boulder PD wanted to tie their own damn shoes and wouldn't accept any help. So this lack of experience and unwillingness to include experts was the catalyst for all of the mistakes moving forward. No matter what you believe, there is one consistent absolute truth in this case. The police fucked everything up super hard.
Yeah.
So there's something called forensic sterility, meaning that detectives have measures to preserve the crime scene meticulously when arriving. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that in this case. When police first arrived, the Ramseys had friends there. Their pastor was there. So adding people in is a definite nope. And police didn't have these people leave. They just came in and were like, oh, okay, anyway, we're going to start policing now. Just the fact that a detective asked John, who was a possible suspect right off the bat, I mean, it's apparent that's suspect number one.
Right.
The detective asked him to do another pass through the house was such a crucial mistake. Not only for the fact that he could have hidden something if he was at fault or if he was guilty of something or whatever. When he did find his daughter, he picked her up and ran up the stairs screaming, which I also guarantee I would have done as a parent. That fucked up evidence.
Right.
You know, a cop with
Do they have
homicide.
stun guns in the house?
I'll get there.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Also, the cops doing the initial questioning of the family were literally a narcotics officer and an officer who specialized in auto theft. What a fucking joke. Yeah.
Holy shit.
It only took a few days before the media got a hold of the story. And 4 days in, pageant photos of Jonbenet were sold by photographers that took them to the press. And it went fucking 90s viral, huge, crazy. As always, this level of media attention, worldwide media attention, throws a wrench into any investigation. It goes nuts. There's more to the media of it all in a minute, but let's get into the 3 camps of the Jonbenet murder, okay? Start with the parents. So many people, including most of the detectives on the team for the Ramseys case, believe the parents either committed this murder or were involved in some way. Why? Statistically, when a child is killed, it's usually done by someone in their immediate family. Okay. Also, the ransom note was super weird. There's inconsistencies and odd language used in the note. That note has been analyzed ad nauseum over the years. One of my sources is from statementanalysis.com. It's in the show notes on svupod.com. It is interesting. I picked out a few things from this list that police found that they felt indicated deception in this note. The length of the note. This note was a 2.5-page long note with unnecessary statements, which they found very odd and inconsistent with quote unquote real ransom ransom notes. Also, the specific amount of money and it being such a small amount for what the Ramseys could afford. They were worth about $6 million at the time. The specific amount was interesting because John had just received a work bonus, a Christmas bonus, for exactly $118,000. The verbiage in the note, the use of "and hence" had been picked apart in subsequent years, just very formal. The varied pronouns, the note starts out with being from a group of individuals and eventually switches to singular first-person pronouns, my and I, and then switches back to us, which normally a person writing wouldn't vary their pronouns. We would also find out that the letter was written on paper from inside the Ramsey home with a pen also from inside the house. Why the fuck would a kidnapper sit and write a nearly 3-page letter inside a home that they broke into? So if this points at the parents, why is it disputed? The Ramseys gave multiple handwriting samples and had each rewritten that note word for word, traumatizing, with their left and right hands 6 or 7 times. And it was determined by handwriting experts that neither matched. Also, the finding of the body. Now, John Ramsey has been given a lot of shit for being the one to find Jonbenét in the wine cellar 8 hours later at 1:30 in the afternoon. People were like, oh, he was told to go look and he found her immediately. Okay, sure, okay. Here's why I argue that. The Ramseys lived in an 11,000 square foot home. That's a fucking mansion. And when I heard this on the news, because this was all you heard about in 1997, was the Jonbenét Ramsey case. For years, I remember thinking that he opened the door to the basement and boom, there she was. And I couldn't wrap my mind around the size of the home. So now my perspective is a little bit different, though, because first of all, police doing a cursory search of your house, how half-assed was that search? Also, like, that is a really big house because you went in there thinking that she wasn't in the house, you know, and that's on you, cops. He was also told to look around the house for anything that may be amiss by an officer. So it's not like he was like, oh, look at this, I found her, you know, that savior thing that people sometimes do when they commit a crime and then they want to be the one to, you know. I remember that being kind of nodded at when it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. Another thing that pointed at the Ramseys was that they immediately hired an incredible defense attorney. Like, why are you hiring a defense attorney right off the fucking bat? We find out later, John Ramsey had received a call from an employee who said that they knew someone at the police department. The person at the police department told this employee to tell John to get the best defense attorney he could. He said, quote, the police department believes you or Patsy or both killed Jonbenét and they're coming for you.
Shit.
So he was like, fuck, well, this is the kind of attorney we need to get if this is the sort of questions that are going to be coming at us. There's also a ton of evidence that police were, in fact, gunning for John and Patsy from day one. The department kept leaking speculations to the press that pointed at the couple, thinking it would eventually make one of them crack and cop a deal to throw the other one under the bus. Neither of them ever did. For example, they released to the press that Patsy refused to give her DNA. Not true. She gave it immediately. So, I mean, this is a huge... I don't know if they understood the scope of what they were doing, this small police department, but people to this day believe that John and or Patsy killed Jonbenét or had some hand in doing it. So when this investigation kicked off, John and Patsy turned over hair samples, DNA, bank records, phone records, absolutely everything the police asked for. Multiple handwriting samples, like I had said. The police narrative really focused on the parents regardless of the evidence. Okay, let's move on to the brother, Burke Ramsey. He was 9 years old. The big finger pointing at him is the pineapple. There was a bowl of pineapple with Burke's fingerprints on it found in the kitchen. Jonbenét's autopsy revealed that she had eaten pineapple not long before she died. The theory is Burke shared some pineapple with Jonbenét, maybe as their parents slept, and some sort of fight happened, resulting in Burke severely hurting his sister, like hitting her in the head with a flashlight. John and Patsy find out, or he tells them, like, oh my God, I hurt Jonbenét. They finish the job and stage an elaborate cover-up to protect their son.
I don't know.
I know. Former Boulder Police Chief Mark Becker, who was in charge of the investigation, believes this is what happened. Either this happened or something else to do with John and Patsy.
So they just sexually assault her for no reason?
To make it look like something else. Yeah. He said, quote, we know from the evidence she was hit in the head very hard with an unknown object, possibly a flashlight or similar type item. The blow knocked her into deep unconsciousness, which could have led someone to believe she was dead. head. The strangulation came 45 minutes to 2 hours after the head strike based on the swelling in the brain. While the head wound would have eventually killed her, the strangulation actually did kill her. The rest of the scene we believe was staged, including the vaginal trauma to make it look like a kidnapping assault gone bad. I have avoided saying who I believe is responsible and let the facts speak for themselves. There are several viable theories, end quote. But also that can be disputed because there are other experts that say that the blow to the head came after other attacks happened. There were other things done to her prior to the blow to the head. So that completely throws this out in the wash. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's pretty obvious what way they're leaning. Him giving this statement, it's pretty obvious what he thinks. Also, Burke's body language has been looked at under a fucking microscope. In his initial police interview, he's fidgety and nervous. He's 9. Yeah. His sister was murdered in his house, and a weird guy's asking him a million questions, okay? Like, did you guys like to have snacks? What kind of snacks did you like to have? What was her favorite snack? And he's like, I don't know, Oreos, cookies, and I don't know. I mean, he questioned him until he got him to say pineapple. And many years after Jonbenét's murder, he did an exclusive, I think it was like 20-year anniversary thing. He did an exclusive with Dr. Phil that was picked apart as well. People said that he smiled too much, fidgeted too much, was socially awkward. But the flip side of that was, of course, he's awkward and fidgety. He's an isolated software engineer who grew up swarmed by media after the brutal unsolved murder of his little sister. And has been accused of being the one to do it. So there was this CBS docuseries that really took this Burke theory on. It was called The Case of Jonbenét Ramsey, and it was painted as a re-examination of the facts, but leaned heavily into this Burke theory, okay? It's argued that it wasn't actually journalism because it was only one side that was looked at, which was this Burke thing, right?
Yeah.
Burke sued CBS for $750,000 for this because it very much, I mean, I watched that and was like, holy shit, fucking Burke did it. But once you look 3 inches into it, you're like, oh wait, this is a very skewed perception of the facts, right? It was really a lot of speculation giving one very skewed perspective. And to this day, Burke is advocating for the discovery of his sister's killer. Okay, this is where I'm resting. Okay, if anybody gave a shit where I believe things are is with this, the intruder. The intruder is the third and final big suspect in this case. I'm just going to go down the bullet points of why it points at an intruder.
Wasn't there a broken window? Oh, okay. You're okay.
All of that comes out with this. Okay. First thing, 1, the tape that was on her mouth and the rope that was used to strangle her were not found to be consistent with anything in the Ramsey home. 2, the Ramseys had had a ton of construction done in recent years, so a lot of people in and out of their house. 3, their home was part of the historic Boulder Holiday Home Tour in December of 1994. 2,000 people toured their house at this time. 4, there was a broken window in the basement and a scuff mark on the wall under the window, like someone had either climbed in or attempted to climb out through that window. There were also a few windows throughout the house that were slightly ajar to let Christmas light cords out from being plugged from inside the house. They had a security system that they didn't use because when it went off, it was really, really loud whenever it was tripped. So they had no security system. It was the kind of neighborhood where they're like, we left our doors unlocked all the time. I mean, if you see crime scene photos, the window isn't like because it's a basement window, and so what I would picture is like an egress window that's like block glass. You know what I'm talking about? But it was like a standard window. It was like a multi-paned window. I mean, not difficult, very accessible from the outside. There was also a partially open suitcase with a comforter, a Dr. Seuss book, and fibers from what Jonbenét was wearing inside the suitcase, underneath the window. There's also a piece of glass from the window on top of the suitcase. That could mean that somebody was trying to climb out of that window after deciding to leave Jonbenét there. 7th thing that points at an intruder, the stun gun marks on her. There was no evidence that the Ramseys had ever owned a stun gun. There was a footprint found in the room that Jonbenét was found, and it didn't match anyone in the house or as a part of the investigation. There was beaver hair found on her when there was none found in the house.
Beaver hair?
I know. I don't know. Maybe somebody's coat, maybe a hat or something. Also, I mean, just lead with this because all this other stuff could equal whatever, but there was unidentified male DNA found under Jonbenét's nails and in her underwear. A pair of long underwear not belonging to anyone in the house were also found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello?
I know.
They should run that DNA now, dude.
Oh, should they? Listen to this. 3 months Into getting nowhere in this case, Boulder PD brought in retired detective Lou Smith from Colorado Springs. In his career, he had solved 200 homicides, many of them cold cases, and they were confident that he would be the key they needed to crack the case. Upon his arrival, he realized that they were gunning for the Ramseys, but from where he sat, it was a kidnapping gone wrong. I mean, right off the bat, he's like, yeah, this looks like an intruder. And then he looked over all the information. He's like, yeah, this is definitely an intruder. And they're like, you are not helping us. So he left the task force after 12 months because no matter what he did, nobody would get on board with him. In the book Jonbenét Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation, former lead detective Steve Thomas wrote this, quote, Lou Smith totally disagreed with my version of the events that night, insisting that the Ramseys were innocent. In his intruder theory, the killer had seen Jonbenét during one of her public appearances, perhaps the Christmas parade, and decided to go after her on Christmas night while the Ramsey family was out for the evening. The pedophile intruder came in through the window well grate and basement window, then spent quite some time roaming around the big house and learning the layout. He found a home tour brochure and learned more about the family. It was also during that period, while he was alone, that he came across the Sharpie pen in the cup and Patsy's writing tablet and wrote the ransom note. Then he hid and waited. End quote. Lou Smith continued to work the case on his own until his death in 2010. But just before he died, he gave his list of suspects and recordings of his research to his daughter, Cindy Mara. She has since taken over and has been collecting DNA from everyone she can on that list of suspects. I could literally go on and on about this shit. So much of what we as a whole believe to be true is wildly exaggerated or completely made up. I mean, I found out through this that so much of it was made up. I mean, and don't come for me with the, well, what about the undisturbed fucking cobwebs outside the window and the whatever. Like, none of that is proven because there wasn't good police work done in the initial investigation. So all that stuff was said. But again, like, there's so much proof pointing at the Boulder PD gunning for the Ramseys that I don't even know if that's true. As we know, the case went cold and has been subject to rumor ever since. In 1999, Burke was officially exonerated. In 2006, Patsy died of ovarian cancer. In 2007, the long underwear that were found were finally tested, and the DNA matched the unidentified DNA that had been found on Jonbenét.
Okay.
With that glaring evidence, in 2008, Boulder DA Mary Lacey formally and publicly exonerated the Ramseys. I feel like I'm trying to convince you to agree with me, even though, like, I feel like you are agreeing with me already right now. But as I was, like, researching it, I'm like, Gabe better not think that it was the fucking Ramseys. Tick, 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 click, click, click. I got to find something that's really going to sell Gabe. So here it is. Fucking Mindhunter himself, John Douglas, Holden Ford, right, from the show, has studied the case and has his own theory. Quote, Jonbenét Ramsey's killer was a white male, relatively young, who had a personal grudge against John Ramsey and intended to carry it out by defiling and robbing him of the most valuable thing in the world to him. He entered the house while the family was out, either through the basement or with one of the many unaccounted for keys to the Ramsey home, carrying with him a stun gun, a roll of duct tape, and a spool of cord. His intention was to incapacitate her, abduct her, and molest her. The ransom demand was an afterthought and could explain why it was written on materials found in the home. He had no intention on collecting such a low sum. He was just trying to make a point and possibly cast suspicion on the Ramseys. It's also possible he had already written a shorter and more succinct ransom note, but that given the amount of time he had to himself, wrote a longer one. He went up to Jonbenét's room, incapacitated her with an air taser stun gun, which could not have made much noise, taped her mouth shut, and then took her downstairs. He began strangling her either during or right after the molestation, and whether he meant to or not, caused her death. When he realized what he had done, he finished the job with a quick blow to the head, and instead of taking her, he fled the house in a panic. End quote. The end. Not yet. In 2018, DNA technology was used to catch one of the most evasive and infamous serial killers of all time, the Golden State Killer, Joe D'Angelo, okay? And I was like, oh, holy shit, how does he tie in? Because we are going to tie him into this season, TBD on that. It's possible that the DNA, remember, because of the email we got? Okay, yeah. Sorry. You were just like listening, and I was like, remember, we heard from the listener? Okay. It's possible that the DNA contributor in Jonbenét's case could be identified using DNA genealogy and this new technology in as little as a few hours. John Ramsey has requested the Boulder PD give this untested DNA to such a lab to be tested, but they refuse.
Why?
The only thing that he speculates, John Ramsey, is that the two main detectives that were initially on the case are still on the case to this day. So there is major animosity between the two. And
Gives a fuck.
I know.
Solve
And he
the
doesn't-
case.
It's all ego. It's all ego. So this year, in 2022, John Ramsey began working to petition the governor of Colorado to force the department to give these labs access to the untested DNA. In a 60 Minutes interview with John Ramsey, he said, quote, "We want to do whatever can be done technically and resource-wise to find the killer of our daughter. And if we do that, but we can't, we'll have to live with that. But to not do it is criminal and just negligent and lazy." There is a petition on change.org called Justice for Jonbenét Ramsey, set up by John. And the last I read, about a month ago, Colorado Governor Jared Polis continues to ignore the petition with nearly 25,000 signatures on it. John Ramsey is now looking into taking legal action and said this, quote, "There was a case in Florida that I read about a couple years ago, and the family did exactly that and were successful. The judge said, okay, you guys aren't calling this a cold case, and it's a cold case. Let's turn over the evidence and move on. And that's our next step if we don't see any progress," end quote.
Yeah.
So as of right now, he's the dad who lost his daughter and doesn't know how she died. Because this is still his life and he's petitioning court. Like, this isn't stuff that he's, I don't know. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I don't believe the Ramseys fucking did it. I don't believe that 9-year-old Burke did it and then fooled expert investigators as a 9-year-old. That he didn't commit a crime. Like, the shit that they got the mainstream media to believe and like the entire country to believe is so much more far-fetched than the intruder theory.
Yeah.
That's it. That was that. And I am hoping, I mean, this stuff is like, the thing I read was literally posted a month ago, the most recent update. And
I hope they don't try to destroy the evidence just to be dicks.
Well, that's what I was worried about. I was like, oh my God, what if the evidence has been contaminated and they don't want people to know that they fucked it up even more? So they're just like biding their time to not have to give it up.
Yeah.
Which would be awful because John and Burke deserve to be like, yeah, they're publicly exonerated, but man, that fucking court of public opinion, dude.
Yeah.
Can you fucking imagine being a 9-year-old lying in bed? There was an interview with Burke where he said that I stayed up in my bed for hours that day with all those people downstairs because I was scared. Like, I was 9. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if my dad was like fighting a bad guy or something. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew everything was really scary and sad and all this, right? And then you find out your sister was murdered in the house where you were sleeping. Then the whole world knows about it after the weekend.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You can't go anywhere. It's just, I mean, and then all of a sudden people are like, you did it. And then for the rest of your life, that's what you hear. Or like, your parents did it. You did it. Your parents did it. People are fucking ruthless.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to go with the experts on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with you. Yep. We just got to get that DNA tested. There was unidentified DNA on her and inside of her underwear.
Blood.
It's a
It was
intruder.
blood DNA because something I read was like, oh, well, touch DNA could be from fucking the mishandled police investigation and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, it was blood in her underwear.
Well, shit. That
Yeah.
was crazy.
Crazy.
Well, you know.
I know that you're trying to do a smooth transition and there isn't one.
I can't.
I know. Well.
Next week, we got season 4, episode 20, Dominance. We got a serial killer with some sex stuff going on. Shits get crazy. A bunch of kills. They got to bring in a homicide detective. That's all. That's it. Serial killer ones are like my favorite.
Yeah, I know they are.
Why don't you rate and review us? Toss us 5 stars. You know, email us at svupod@gmail.com. Send us stuff.
Yeah.
At P.O. Box 176, DeForest, Wisconsin 53532. And check out our Instagram at SVUPod and join the Facebook group SVUPod Elite Squad, my favorite fucking thing in the whole world.
It's really great.
Hashtag a little bit loud for all your indie pod needs. And join the Patreon, dude. We got tons of content on there.
Check out the little blurb that we posted last week about how we're changing up the Patreon. We're just taking some of what you give us and giving it where we think it should go. Yeah. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Well,
Just fucking chill out, Gabe.
learning and growing and changing and developing and being better people all the time.
Right. China mainland. Okay, I'm going to decline that phone call. Hope it wasn't anything urgent. Just cut all that shit out, whatever.
Start over. Because if we're negative about how we are, then we're not going to be funny. It's not going to be funny.
Right.
It's positive affirmations. Gabe, you are the funniest person I know, and I love you, and I love doing this with you, and we're having a great time.
Tasha, you are the funniest person I know, and I love you, and I forgot the rest, and I'm having a great time.
I do.
1,000 times yes.
So, tell me you make all your lease payments early.
Oh, God. And to our Elite Squad patrons, Haley K, Sonia W, Jenny S, Sky K, Marissa M, Elkie H, Annie G, Mary D,
Andrew,
Rebecca D, Miranda B, Shelby W, Lex,
Emily T, Kayla W, Mallory G, Bonita R, Marin, Vanessa, Amy P, Jess M, Summer M, Melanie G, Courtney W, Ursula S, Emily A, Kate H, Yanga,
Nicole R, Julia P, Sapphire, Kayla, Allison B, Catherine M, Kate P, Jessica S, Nicole M, Acacia V.
Nicole.
I did.
You said Nicole.
I did not. Nicole
You did.
M. I didn't. Nicole M.
Yes, you did.
I didn't.
I'm gonna.
Nicole M. Acacia V. Daniel W. It's not my problem that your ears aren't working the way they should be.
I'm going to get that audio and I'm going to send it to you and I'm going to be correct.
You are going to burn in hell for being a bitch.
You are going. Oing, oing, oing.
Okay, hold on. Where am I? Nicole M. Acacia V.
Danielle W, Kelsey D, Jana M, Joshua H, Tammy J, Bear, Crystal, Lucy M, Trisha S, Sam D, Laura I, Sarah, Emily A,
Angela D. Mac Attack. Casey W. Abby W. Alexis J. Lauren T. and Cassandra S. We fucking love you guys. We appreciate you. You're helping make this possible and supporting us.